This is Evening News for Friday, October 11, 2013. I'm Samuel Suknandan. Thanks for joining us. Making the headlines tonight. APNU and government condemn Venezuela's detention of oil survey vessel. Fire destroys oil bond, ravishes nearby house. 3-0 charge remanded for marijuana and cocaine possession. Government ready for local government elections. And City Hall to sue 100 defaulters for $500 million owed in taxes. And now for the news in detail. A seismic vessel was detained in local waters yesterday by Venezuelan Navy, which has sparked many criticisms. Here are the details in this report. The Foreign Affairs Ministry today confirmed that a seismic vessel was taken from Guyanese waters and detained by Venezuelan authorities on the island of Margarita, where it remains docked. The ministry said government is of the firm belief that the actions taken by the Venezuelan Navy vessel constitutes a serious threat to the peace of this sub-region, for which it strongly condemns. It also said a breach of international laws and conventions occurred, especially those applications governing maritime jurisdiction. The government, in a strong statement, has called for the immediate release of the crew and vessel by the Venezuelan authorities. It was noted in the release that this move comes just after an August 31, 2013 visit by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro to Guyana, in which he and President Donald Ramotar recommitted to the United Nations Good Offices process. This office was set up by the UN in search for a peaceful and practical settlement of the border controversy between the two countries. On the very same day that President Maduro was in Guyana, there was another intrusion at Etheringbank Region 7 by Venezuelan soldiers. Meanwhile, the ministry said the RV Technic Perdana, which is under contract with Anadarko, was searching for hydrocarbons in the Roraima block offshore Guyana when it was detained. Oil exploration in Guyana's waters has in the past attracted interference by both Caracas and Suriname in the west. Suriname's gunboats chased an oil rig contracted by CGX in June of 2000. This has sparked years of dispute until its substantial resolution in Guyana's favor after it formally went before the International Law of the Sea Tribunal in Hamburg, Germany. Reporting for the Evening News, I'm Samuel Suknandan. The main opposition party has condemned the move made by the Venezuelan Navy to detain another vessel carrying out seismic studies for Guyana's oil exploration. Here's that story. APNU leader David Granger said the move constitutes a threat to international peace. Granger is therefore calling on the Venezuelan government to desist from resorting to armed force in its relations with Guyana. The APNU also expressed concern over the actions of the Venezuelan Navy in Guyana's economic zone. The party said it understands that the Navy entered Guyana's waters at about 16 hours on Thursday. A seismic survey vessel was conducting studies here at the time. The Navy instructed the vessel to proceed to Venezuelan waters, where they were detained.
I do believe the Venezuelan Bolivarian Navy here has acted in a manner which is inconsistent with the line that was taken by President Maduro himself when he was in Georgetown, when he gave the impression that Venezuela was prepared to resolve this matter diplomatically and not to use force. So to come back to your question, I hope it's not too long-winded a question, but you have to link it with President Chavez's position, you have to link it with President Maduro's visit, you have to link it with the Etheringbank incident, and I think those four incidents taken together, this includes yesterday's incident, would show that there are elements in Venezuela which are definitely bent on reviving Venezuela's claim to the Essequibo.
This is not the first time that Venezuelan authorities have meted out this sort of action to Guyana. For the Evening News, I'm Samuel Suknandan. A fire today destroyed a bond owned by BPATs at Ogle East Coast Demerara, but not before reducing a nearby house to debris. Bisham Mohammed reports.
Millions of dollars in goods belonging to MB Pat & Sons Limited went up in flames after a mid-morning fire ripped through a storage bond at Ogle East Coast Demerara earlier today. The fire also left at least 4 persons homeless who reside at Lot 20 Temple Street, Ogle East Coast Demerara, after it started at Lot 19 and quickly spread to the nearby house. The incident also forced the closure of a number of schools in the area as precautionary measures. From reports received, flames were seen emanating from the top of the building at about 10 hours 40, and due to the content of the bond, the fire spread rapidly. The storage bond had a quantity of fish spray and other flammable materials. During the fire, 2 gas cylinders exploded, creating havoc in the small residential community. According to information received, the house that was destroyed as a result of the fire could have been saved. Minutes after the fire started, the occupants of the house arrived on the scene but were helpless and could not have salvaged any household items.
I was cooking in the kitchen and I heard pong, like gunshot going off, right? And I said, me come out, but I didn't send him granddad. I said, Ma, fire, fire, BPAT building on fire. And they bring me downstairs because I can't really walk. But I'm very sad to know that what happened. And when I come out, I see fire all the time. Oh God, and I get so worried and scared.
Yeah, something go off just so. Yeah, and I watch how she smoke.
Okay. Did you know where exactly was be stored in the building?
Moses fish spray and so. The band has bring different container of things there.
It's a band really?
Yes, it's a band.
Okay. And around what time they started?
About 20 to 11.
However, Operations Officer Guyana Fire Service Joseph McDonald shares some of the challenges that the firefighters encountered.
We responded to the fire after, I can't really give it the specific time now, but the 3 vehicles responded. The building was heavily grilled, as you could see, right? And it took us a while to get to the seat of this building. Although heavily grilled is plenty of stocks inside this building, as you can see right now. Now we responded with our 3 tenders pumping water, as you can see, from over 600 feet away. And as such, the fire is under control, as I could say. It's completely under control, and we are just doing what we call mopping up exercise.
He reiterated that they attempted to save the nearby house, but it was already engulfed in flames by the time they arrived on the scene. Members of the BPAT family were at the scene but refused to offer a comment. There were also a number of employees present. Bisham Mohammed, The Evening News.
The Georgetown Mayor and City Council today disclosed that close to 100 defaulters will be sued for rates and taxes amounting to more than $500 million. Proprietor of the Kaiser newspaper, Glenn Lal, and advisor to the opposition, Christopher Ram, are among those already sued. Details in the Svetlana Marshall report.
Acting Town Clerk Carol Suber today told the press that proprietor of the Kaiser newspaper, Glenn Lal, advisor to the opposition, Christopher Ram, and city mayor's wife are just a few of the close to 100 persons who are indebted to the council. As of December 2012, approximately $500 million was owed to the council for rates and taxes. On Thursday, Ram and Lal were slapped with lawsuits for failure to pay the council millions of dollars in rates and taxes.
Mr. Glenn Lal said that the council owed him $7.1 million, and we took him to court for 6.5 for the hearing. I wish to inform this media that I've been acting in the capacity of town clerk for 14 months, about 14 months now. And so is the city treasurer, Mr. McCalvin. And I'm not aware that this council owes Mr. Glenn Lal and Ms. Bina Lal any monies. We have duly sent the required notices, and I was advised that that has been sent for a number of years. And since I took office, no request was made of me for any payment to Mr. Glenn Lal. And there is no record in the system, as we are aware of, to show that the council is indebted to Mr. Glenn Lal.
Meanwhile, Mayor Green's wife was also sued for owing the council $10 million in rates and taxes. It is most likely that another person will be taken to the court shortly for owing more than $60 million. Suba told media operatives that several attempts have been made to have persons pay their rates and taxes, but to no avail, leaving the council with no other choice than to turn to the courts.
The council, over the years, have been trying all amicable means to have the citizens who owe this council enormous amounts for rates. As you are aware and should be aware by now, that the major source of our funding comes from the payment of rates and the provisions therein to execute the works that this council supposed to be executed is provided for in the Municipal and District Councils Act.
With the anticipation of winning the court cases against the defaulters, the acting town clerk hopes to execute major projects in keeping with the responsibility of the council. Reporting for the Evening News, I'm Swetlana Marshall.
Opposition advisor Lal Bachchan Christopher Ram and owner and publisher of the Mudcracking Kaichir News Mohan Lal, also known as Glenn Lal, are pleading with the Mayor and City Council, MNCC, not to take court action in the matter surrounding their non-payment of rates and taxes to the tune of millions of dollars. Here's details in this report. In a press release issued on Friday, Ram presumptuously claimed the discussions on the matter go back to the 1990s, when agreement was reached to have balances due for services rendered to the MNCC offset against the millions of dollars he owes in rates and taxes. And in a spurious Kaichir News report, also on Friday, Lal and his wife Bina made a similar claim about offsetting the millions of dollars owed in rates and taxes against services provided by his Mudcracking newspaper. Ram and Lal were slapped with lawsuits on Thursday morning for millions of dollars owed in rates and taxes. The cases were filed by attorney Sandil Kissoon from the Kissoon & Kissoon law firm on behalf of the Mayor and City Council, MNCC of Georgetown. Ram, who is closely connected to the Transparency Institute of Guyana Inc., TIGI, reportedly owes more than $1.4 million in taxes for Sublot D of 157 Waterloo Street, North Cummingsburg, according to court documents. He is also believed to owe the MNCC another $2.9 million for Sublot C of the same Waterloo Street property. Further, the court documents allege that he owes yet another $7 million for Sublot B of the same property. In all, Ram reportedly owes the MNCC more than $11.3 million. Meanwhile, Lal and his wife Bina owe the MNCC more than $5.6 million in taxes, according to court documents. Lal, his self-proclaimed righteous citizen, owes that amount for a property at 24 Saffron Street, Charlestown, Georgetown. Inside sources at the MNCC have confirmed that both Ram and Lal were served with notices some 7 days ago to pay their debts as legal action loomed. Ram, in the release, claimed that the issue is essentially an administrative one and begged that the matter be settled out of court. Both Ram and Lal, who are avid supporters of opposition political parties, are now required to appear on October 24 to answer to charges of owing millions of dollars. Acting Town Clerk Carol Sober said the council will continue its zero-tolerance approach in dealing with any case where the city's law are breached. She said that a number of cases are before the court as the council seeks redress and declined to make specific mention of any case or defaulter. A leading financial expert in the private sector said he finds it surprising that both Lal and Ram are claiming that they are likewise owed for various services, hence they did not pay their taxes. He said this is very presumptuous, as any accountant would know that if a statutory body is owed, payment must be made by obligation on those dates that are prescribed in law. Failure to do so is subject to penalty, which is also clearly prescribed in law. He said this has always been the way even the Ghana Revenue Authority in particular conducts its businesses. The financial expert went on to give an example, saying if someone overpays GRA in 2011 and then owes for 2012, GRA expects that persons to pay in full for 2012 by the prescribed deadline, while treating the possibility of a refund for 2011 as a separate matter. He said set-offs are therefore generally not allowed even on the same taxes, much less setting off printing or advertising costs or consultancy fees. Already many Guyanese are expressing shock at the development given Ram's recent comments about accountability and transparency in government. He has also been a vocal opposition political commentator, calling on the business community and citizens to pay their rates and taxes, as reported prominently in the Mudcracking Kaichir News. One observer said it is ironic and indeed hypocritical that these two public self-righteous figures would be calling on the government to be more accountable and transparent when they themselves are hiding behind a closet. The Ghana Office for Investment says it handles more agriculture-related investments proposals than anything else. Acting Director of Go Invest Danraj Danpaul listed more than 10 agribusinesses and said these companies are not indigenous since they continue to operate in Guyana through investments facilitated by his office. He was at the time speaking of the investment possibilities and waivers that await potential businesses at a workshop organized by the Food and Agriculture Organization and the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture and Hunger, food security and malnutrition in the Caribbean. The workshop was one of the several held as part of Caribbean Week of Agriculture. Among the companies currently operating out of Ghana in the agriculture sector are the Barbados-owned Santa Fe Inc. and Al Axis Splash Citrus Company Guyana Inc., Southern Investment, Virgin Caribbean, Old Mac Agro Supply, Henry's Farm out of Trinidad and Tobago, and Caricom Rice Mill of St. Vincent, and Barron Foods of St. Lucia owned by Guyanese. Preparations for the long-awaited local government elections are moving apace, Local Government Minister Ganga Prasad disclosed, noting that citizens would most likely move to the polls by the third quarter of 2014. Svetlana Marshall has the details.
Even as the Attorney General's chamber scrutinizes the 4 local government reform bills that were passed in the National Assembly in August, Minister of Local Government and Regional Development Ganga Prasad said the much-anticipated local government elections can be staged by the third quarter.
Our sense is that we are monitoring the movement of the Elections Commission. We've seen a tentative timetable that the Elections Commission would have put out, which seek to suggest that there might be a possibility of local government elections or the Guyana Elections Commission being ready for the holding of local government elections, maybe somewhere mid of the year or in the third quarter of the year.
Nevertheless, Prasad said preparations for the elections are moving apace. Already, GECOM has conducted approximately 7,000 transactions ahead of the closing of its 5th cycle for continuous registrations on November 23rd. Additionally, the Local Government Ministry has given its green light for GECOM to commence its public awareness program. At the level of the ministry, councillors and representatives from the 65 neighborhood Democratic Councils will converge at the ministry in Kingston to participate in an intense training session from November 18.
Discussion will center around the legislation, issues such as what is a constituency and how you define, recognize, identify these constituencies, the 2 systems under which the elections would be held, the PR, the proportional representation system, as well as the first past the post system. Discussion will center too around persons who are eligible to vote, issues why persons need to vote in local government elections, and some bit in terms of how the results will be tabulated.
Additionally, local representatives will be edified on the Local Authorities Elections Amendment, which was assented to by the former president, Barry Jagdeo. Minister Prasad made it clear that the People's Progressive Party Civic administration will not delay any longer the staging of local government elections held since 1992. Meanwhile, the Partnership for National Unity, APNU, called on the President, Donald Ramotar, to send to the Local Government Commission Bill, the Local Government Amendment Bill, the Municipal and District Councils Amendment Bill, and the Fiscal Transfer Bill to maintain a high level of democracy in the country. Reporting for the Evening News, I am Svetlana Marshall.
Police have arrested the main suspect in the death of Shelton Joseph of Ozama Street, Rosignol, who died on October 5 at the Georgetown Public Hospital after nursing head and spinal injuries for 2 weeks. Reports disclose that the suspect was arrested in Essequibo after he was recognized by an eyewitness. Charges are expected to be made soon. Joseph was struck by a wood on September 27 after attempting to part a fight between the 2 men he knew. He immediately collapsed and was rushed to the Fort Wellington Hospital and was later transferred transferred to the Georgetown Public Hospital. 2 persons were today charged and remanded to prison for marijuana found at La Familia Hotel in South Rhineville, while another man was remanded for cocaine found in Star Apples. Anarakan has this report.
Today, 3 men appeared in the Georgetown Magistrates' Courts before Magistrate Fabio Azor to answer to the charges against them. Marilyn King, 4-1 of Lot 19 Roxanne Burnham Gardens, and 30-year-old Carlson Fawcett, also known as Carlo, were charged with the offense of possession of narcotics. It was alleged that on October 9th at Aubrey Barker Street, Rhineville, the duo had in their possession 8.206 kilograms of cannabis for the purpose of trafficking. Both men pleaded not guilty to the charge as it was read to them. According to Customs Anti-Narcotic Unit Special Prosecutor Oswald Messiah, on the day in question, ranks from Kanu, acting on information, went to the vicinity of La Familia Hotel, where they observed King exiting a motor vehicle with a suitcase in his hand and approached another vehicle which was parked a short distance away. King then placed the suitcase in the trunk of the car and closed it. Shortly after, the ranks approached the vehicle, and by that time, Fawcett approached the vehicle, claiming it to be his. A search was conducted on the suitcase, where 18 packets of cannabis were discovered. Both men were told of the allegation and were arrested and charged. Attorney Melville Duke, who represented King, told the court that the police deprived him of food and water. Meanwhile, 40-year-old Charles Anderson of Lot 245 Enterprise Gardens, East Coast Demerara, pleaded not guilty to the charge which stated that between January 24th and January 25th, 2012, at Cheddi Jagan International Airport, he had in his possession 20.056 kilograms of cocaine for the purpose of trafficking. Kanu prosecutor Messiah said that the defendant is an exporter of provisions, fruits, and vegetables. On the day in question, Anderson exported a quantity of fruits, including mangoes and star apples, to Canada. When the shipment arrived on Canadian shores, it was checked and the authorities found cocaine stuffed inside the star apples. An investigation was carried out, after which the defendant was arrested. Attorney Mark Waldron, who represented Anderson, said that the charges against his client are inadmissible since the facts were based on hearsay. He also said that his client is not a flight risk. However, Magistrate Azor refused bail and all 3 men were remanded to prison. The matters were transferred to Court 1 for October 14th.
Demerara Distillers Limited, DDL, has appealed the decision by the High Court which ordered it to pay more than $5.2 billion in consumption tax to the Ghana Revenue Authority, even as the tax collection body is warning businesses that do not comply with court orders that it will resort to levy proceedings. In a statement on Thursday, the GRA said that this matter is of paramount importance. Quote, the company has thereafter filed a separate and distinct application for judicial review prerogative writ in the High Court, end of quote. GRA said. Meanwhile, the revenue body listed a number of businesses, 3 of which it secured winding up orders for that have defaulted in tax payments. The GRA said it obtained several judgments over a number of years against defaulting taxpayers for outstanding taxes, particularly PAYE and VAT. The judgment debtors include COPS Ghana Limited, which stands at $433.6 million in PAYE, Ghana Stores Limited $354.1 million in corporate and other taxes, and Ditco Trading Company Limited $59.2 million in PAYE, among others. Join us after these messages for more of the evening news. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the evening news. The police have launched separate investigations into the deaths of 2 men at Reliance and No. 64 Village, Currentine Berbice, on Thursday. The dead men were identified as the Surinamese national Nate Kumar Singh and Chandradat Tikaram, also called John, 54 of Lot 182, No. 64 Village, Currentine Berbice. According to information received, Nate Kumar Singh was found sitting motionless in a chair in the hall with a brown towel wrapped around him. His body was examined by police ranks and no marks of violence seen on the exposed part parts of his body. A post-mortem examination is expected to be performed shortly. Meanwhile, Tikaram may have died between Thursday morning at 6 hours and 11 hours at his house. His wife, Sirat Mati Harman, also known as Janelta, left home to make a telephone call at another relative and upon returning home found him motionless on the toilet seat with his head between his feet. Investigations are continuing. The government has decided to work towards phasing out the use of mercury in the gold mining sector no later than 2022. The details in this report. In keeping with international obligations, Ghana has been making strides to reduce the use of mercury in the gold mining sector and by extension is aiming to phase out this in the near future. To this end, the government has now set a new deadline by which it wants to accomplish this goal. Head of the Presidential Secretariat, Dr. Roger Luncheon, said on Thursday that following a discussion on this matter, Cabinet has decided to work towards phasing out mercury by the year 2022.
Between 2013 and 2022, Guyana would exercise a phasing in of restrictions against importation and restrictions against the use of mercury in gold mining.
This, he said, is confirmed with the terms and conditions set out by international bodies and is likely to be achieved through hard work. It was noted, too, that government has already started to look at alternatives to mercury.
It should be pointed out that alternatives to mercury in the gold mining that is done in Guyana, the alluvial gold mining, these alternatives are not cheap. The technology is a substantial technology and not readily accessible by the thousands of small miners.
Natural Resources and the Environment Minister Robert Persaud has committed to ensuring that the use of mercury in the gold mining sector is phased out. However, he had pointed out that the socio-economic implications of a ban in the production and supply of mercury could affect approximately 100,000 persons. These persons directly or indirectly depend on the mining sector to earn a livelihood. Reporting for the Evening News, I'm Samuel Suknandan. The Ghana Power and Light Inc. has apologized for the extended outage experienced by its customers within South Rhineville Gardens, Roxanne Barnum Gardens, and East and West Rhineville areas on Thursday. This was due to unforeseen technical difficulties experienced by technicians while reconfiguring the network in preparation for the commissioning of the new Georgetown North Rhineville substation in November. According to a GPL release, its technicians worked throughout the evening and power was restored to all areas at 23 hours. The new Georgetown North Rhineville substation is one of 7 new substations under GPL's infrastructure development project, which is aimed at improving the quality of electricity supplied, system stability, improved voltage regulation, and reduction of technical losses. The Ghana Coalition on HIV and AIDS has begun to exhaust all possible avenues to generate funding for the sustenance and provision of services being offered to the vulnerable community. Sabatini Daniels reports.
Although the Coalition on HIV and AIDS has been faced with some difficulties in keeping its doors open, membership subscription and donations have been the major contributing factors to the organization's upkeep. To add to this, the GBCHA today announced that it will be having a raffle fundraiser activity to bring in finances with the aim of providing additional services and for a lengthier period to citizens. Director of the Coalition, Suzanne French, during an exclusive interview with this newscast, said that there is a significant gap to the hours and days the organization has been offering counseling and testing. She explained that the reason for this was a shortage of funding, as she highlighted that the GBCHA's funding was constantly being reduced and shortly after cut entirely by PEPFAR after the project was operating on a low budget here. French said that the raffle aims to enhance the programs offered by increasing the days to do testing and counseling.
We have been offering testing for 5 days when we first started, but over the past year we've been doing 2.5 days. And so you can imagine how we feel turning away over 100 persons every month.
French told the Evening News that the organization is only able to support a counselor attached to the organization half-time per month. For the Evening News, Leanna Bradshaw.
The police say they're investigating the deaths of Chris Alicock, 30 years, of Aruka Rivermouth, Northwest District, which occurred on Sunday. Alicock and Raul Khan, 39 years, of Mabaruma Settlement, were involved in an altercation when Khan picked up a brick and pelted Alicock in his lower back. Alicock was taken to the Mabaruma Hospital after experiencing pains in his back, where he later died. Khan has been arrested and is assisting the police in their investigation. A post-mortem examination was performed yesterday by pathologist Dr. Neol Singh on the body of Alicock. The cause of death has been determined as a ruptured spleen caused by a hard object. Join us after these messages for more news. Welcome back, you're watching the Evening News. President of the Gold Coast Production Inc., Ronnie Morris, is in Ghana as one of the directors for the Ghana Fashion Week with the main aim of exploring Guyanese musical talents. Bisham Mohammed met with the icon and filed this report.
Gold Coast Records Incorporated out of Barbados will be hosting the Barbados Music Awards in January 2014 and is looking for local talented artists in the music industry to perform at the event, with the hope of getting them signed internationally. President of the company, Ronnie Morris, explained that he's impressed with some of the local talent and feels that they can go the complete 9 yards.
I'm really interested in Mystic. I've heard his music. I met with him. He's a very outstanding young person. I think that the world is going to be blown away when they hear him. I told him that he sounds like Marvin Gaye. But then I also heard a young lady called Lisa Punch, I think is her name. I think she has a fantastic range. I've never met her, but I think she will go very far.
He stated that while he sees talented artists here, there needs to be more intervention from stakeholders in making their dreams become realities.
Having met with them and seeing that you can take someone who is young, who is raw, who has no connections, just has an image and a voice, and get them to be one of the biggest stars on earth. That I think what we lack here, what we lacked before was the confidence. We should have that now. But we need the private sector to get involved. We need the public sector to get involved and put so much more behind these young people.
Morris also explained his involvement with the Guyana Fashion Week, slated for October 20 to 26.
Well, I do have a background in fashion. We've been speaking a lot while I was here about my background in music, but I was the first ever Mr. Barbados winner. I won the Ambassadors Gala, I won Roots Experience. I also was a runner-up in Mr. World in London in 2003. And as a model, I was the face of Ford for the Caribbean for 2 years. So, I did a lot of commercials. I did entertainment television and that kind of thing. So my background in fashion is very diverse and it's extensive. So what I bring to the table is the networking I've done in fashion and music to connect Guyana Fashion Week really to the international media directly at the heart of that media. To find one person during the workshop we'll be having at Rahman's Park on the 26th of October at 12 o'clock, to find that one person who we can take to Barbados to perform at the Barbados Music Awards. And this year there are a lot of international artists there.
He also gave a sneak peek of what the music workshop will entail, while noting that it costs only $10 to register.
You come to the workshop, don't bring any music. I don't want you to bring any recorded music because you're going to bring something that's edited. It could be edited well or it could be edited badly. And I want you to, the first hour of the workshop is going to be very informative. What is music business about? How do you find a manager? How do you find a booking agent? What is licensing? What is publishing? What is copyright? What is distribution? What is a good contract? What is a bad contract? What should you look for? What should you avoid? That kind of thing. And then the second part of the workshop would be, I want to hear every single person audition, as in sing, without music.
The workshop will focus on breaking into the global market as a recording artist and performer, and persons interested in becoming part of the workshop are asked to call Guyana Fashion Week on 226-3099. Bisham Mohammed, The Evening News.
One of the first impressions passengers arriving at the Chetty Jagan International Airport gate of Ghana is from the interaction with the red cap porters and taxi drivers, which CGI's management intends to build on. At a meeting held recently, the airport's Chief Executive Officer Ramesh Gir, Commercial and Administration Manager Dursati Dudnoth, and Safety Officer Mohanman Balram engaged in a candid discussion with the authorized taxi drivers and red cap porters. Furthermore, a new system was unveiled to taxi drivers which will permit a smooth and efficient shift management. Quote, they will operate a turn system whereby passengers will go with the next taxi in line. This will eliminate the individual taxi drivers themselves approaching passengers and trying to coerce them into using their service. It will be more structured and lend to a better experience for passengers. End of quote, Ramesh Gir explained. Join us after these messages for your evening news sportscast, sponsored by Macor. Welcome back, and now for a look at sport. In your headlines, construction of warm-up pool underway. Clive Atwell to headline Sunday's boxing card, and President's Golf Tournament tees off tomorrow. And now for the news in detail. Construction of the 25-meter warm-up pool at Liliendal is well underway as the government of Ghana seeks to enhance Ghana's ability to host prestigious regional and international meets. Avinash Ramzan reports.
The warm-up pool, which is a prerequisite for the staging of regional and international competitions, is being built by Innovative Engineering Consultancy Services, which will install the base and decks to be completed by March 2014. After that, Marta Pools will supervise the installation of the prefab pool, according to Sport Minister Dr. Frank Anthony. The minister also pointed out that unlike the 50-meter Olympic-sized swimming pool, which carried pile foundation, the warm-up pool will be built on strip foundation.
We need to work quickly and in a timely manner. I think some of the challenges that we have experienced with this particular pool, we have learned from it. The design that we're employing here is slightly different. This particular pool would have had quite extensive piling.
The minister also used the opportunity to urge the contractors to work assiduously to honor the deadline, as finishing the project on time is critical.
One of the difficulty that we had with this particular 50-meter pool, when you excavate and if you allow the rains to catch you, then you're in deep trouble. So you need to finish off this portion as quickly as possible and put it in a state that the rains does not interfere with your work. And given sometimes the fluctuation of rain these days, we need to work very quickly on that. I think once you complete that, then we'll be in the safe zone.
Managing Director of Innovative Engineering Consultancy Services, Dheeraj Dalchand, said works have been progressing well on the project since the site was handed over by the Sport Ministry in early September.
When the works would have been started, we had some relocation of pipework which was in the construction area. So this firstly had to be done before any excavation could be started. Followed by that, we started the excavations on the 23rd of September. On the 29th of September, on the 7th of October, we had a slippage of the embankment which was presently holding the fill for the existing decking to the slab. And we have since instructed the contractor to install a sheet pile revetment along the entire area just to avoid any further slippages and to ensure the structural integrity of both the existing pool as well as the building.
Meanwhile, Director of Sport Neil Kumar said alternative arrangements have been made for national swimmers who usually use the 50-meter Olympic-sized swimming pool to train on a daily basis.
What we have done, as you know, we are preparing for the Inter-Guyana Games. We'll be leaving next Thursday for Suriname, and swimming is one of the disciplines. So we have moved here. We are practicing at Coleraine, and at the Castellani House. Our swimmers are now using those two pools in preparation for the Inter-Guyana Games. Our international swimmers and our national swimmers will continue even after the Inter-Guyana Games to use the Castellani pool for training. We have made that arrangement and we are very thankful to Office of the President. In the meanwhile, I want to appeal to the contractor and the consultant to make sure they meet the deadline so we could finish this pool and let it become a reality.
The stage is set for the second President's Cup golf tournament billed for tomorrow at the Lusignan Golf Course, with local players competing at the prestigious event organized to promote golf and sport tourism in Guyana. President Donald Ramotar, in whose honor the tournament has been named, is expected to tee off the event. The Lusignan Golf Course comprises 9 holes and participants would be vying for lucrative prizes, including the player nearest to the pin and the longest drive, among others. Over 40 local participants have signed up for the amateur tournament, which was attracted sponsorship from Banks DIH Limited, Anson McCall Trading, Cedar and Marketing and Distribution. Featherweight boxing champion Clive Atwell said he is focused ahead of his 8-round clash against Jamaican Glenroy Beckford on Sunday. More in this report.
The fight will be the feature event of the Guyana Boxing Board of Control and the Guyana Boxing Association's organised 30th edition of Guyana Fight Night. The card will box off from 20 hours at the Cliff Anderson Sports Hall with the amateur segment. Speaking at the GBBC organised press conference on Thursday at National Communications Network studio, Atwell said he's ready for the contest.
I came down late, but with the legendary coach Leonard Daniels, we've had some wonderful days over the past week with national champion and Kobofi champion Dexter Mark, Declo, and young Kishan Simon. We've all been in one camp. We've been doing some good work, so a few sparring and everything. We're ready. I'm ready. Unfortunately, again, the fight is on. My opponent is on his way, but there's still a bit of shakiness as it relates to my maximum performance come Sunday night, which is yet to be covered over the next few hours.
The GBBC President Peter Abdul in his address said that Atwell's fight is a warm-up ahead of the World Boxing Council's Cup of Champions. Atwell will be in action on November 22 when he squares off with Justin Savvy in Morocco. Abdul said another Guyanese, Simeon Hardy, will also participate in the WBC World Cup and he will be in action on November 15. Meanwhile, the main supporting bout will see Kobofi champion Edmund Declos squaring off with Derek Richmond in a middleweight contest over 8 rounds. The other 2 fights on the professional card will bring together Dexter Marks and Richard Williamson in an 8-round bantamweight bout and David Thomas against Kishan Simon in a 4-round welterweight contest. Admission is $1,000. The weighing is scheduled for Saturday from 19 hours at the Stabrook Sports Bar at Brickdam.
Skipper Cheteshwar Pujara stroked his 3rd first-class triple century to put India A in control against West Indies A in the final test. Responding to West Indies A first innings, 268, India A declared a 564 for 9 with Pujara not out on 306. In reply, West Indies closed day 3 on 116 for 3 with Narsingh Dinarayan on 44 and Asad Fududdin on 36. They need another 180 to avoid an innings defeat. Remember, you can read about these and other stories in tomorrow's edition of the Guyana Times newspaper, which can be purchased from vendors across the country. When you're not reading our newspaper or watching TVG Channel 28, do tune in to Radio Guyana Inc. on 89.3, 89.5 or 89.7 FM. Join us after these messages for your bridge reports. Welcome back, and now for a look at your bridge reports. The Denver Harbor Bridge will be closed on Saturday, October 12 at 10 hours 30 for a period of 1.5 hours. And the Berbice River Bridge will be closed on Saturday, October 12 at 9 hours 55 for a period of 1.5 hours. That's your Friday, October 11, 2013 edition of the Evening News. I'm Samuel Suknandon. Thanks for joining us.